Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the parents of a cyclist who died 2 years ago returned to Scotland to mark the anniversary. Emma Burke-Newman died after being struck by a lorry on Glasgow's Broomielaw. Her parents say she'd been worried about the junction where she died.
And she goes, well, there's just one tricky bit. So I think she was aware in general of the dangers, and she did everything possible to make herself visible.
Also on tonight's programme, hundreds of inmates will be released early next month as prisons strive to reduce overcrowding. New legislation passed last year means people sentenced to under 4 years could be freed earlier.
Settling in Uist, going to do 1,000,001 things to improve their own lives, and by being there they were improving the lives of their own families and of the community around them.
Fresh tributes are paid to the 5 family members who died 2 decades ago in a storm that battered Uist and the west of Scotland.
And I'll bring the sport live from Villa Park, where Celtic take on Aston Villa in the Champions League.
Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Wednesday's programme. She'd come to Scotland to study architecture. Her passion? Designing safer cities to live in. But 2 years ago, Emma Burke-Newman died in the very city she called home, struck by a lorry on Glasgow's Broomielaw. Today, her parents, who live in Paris, returned to mark the 2nd anniversary of her death. They say she'd raised concerns about the very junction where she died before the accident. Suzanne Allen has been speaking to them.
22-year-old Emma had only lived in Glasgow for 3 months when she was killed. The French-American architecture student was dragged 174 feet along the road and later died in hospital. Her parents feel her loss as strongly today as they did 2 years ago.
She was funny, she was loving, she was warm.
She was compassionate. She was known for a big hug, and that's one of the things I remember.
It was at this junction on the city's Broomielaw that the collision happened. Emma had experience of cycling in cities like Paris, Berlin and London and was aware of the risks. It was not her fault.
I think one of the discussions, John, you had with Emma on the phone was he was looking at a map of her commute. This looks like a highway you're taking down to the Broomielaw. And she goes, well, there's just one tricky bit. So I think she was aware in general of the dangers, and she did everything possible to make herself visible and to respect the law. Unfortunately, drivers in her case did not.
A memorial sits at the site of the crash, with flowers laid on the 2nd anniversary of her death. The driver of the lorry received community service and a 12-month ban for careless driving.
The suspension of their license is remarkably short. There seems to be some idea that there is a right to drive.
Safety campaigners say a lot of good work has been done in the city, but some cycle lanes are outdated and needing replaced.
So the example over on the bridge here is of an old cycle lane which only has paint separating the people cycling from the traffic, which provides no protection at all. Whereas over on the left here, the new cycle infrastructure here is separated by these hard measures, the concrete curb, and the people cycling have their own road space.
She had done everything right though, hadn't she?
She had.
Yeah.
Was the sort of cruel irony of this collision and Emma. So Emma was an architect, or becoming an architect. She was a designer, but she was working on livable neighborhoods. And then to have her be killed by the same systems she was trying to improve is really tough to think about.
It seems cruel.
Yeah.
Glasgow City Council is planning to improve the junction where the crash happened to make it safer for cyclists like Emma. Suzanne Allen, Reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Hundreds of inmates will be released early next month as part of a Scottish Government drive to reduce the population in our prisons. Under the latest move, up to 390 prisoners will be released. This will be driven by a change to the length of time inmates need to serve before they are eligible for release. And just to give you a sense of the issue at the moment, the target operating capacity for Scotland's prisons is 8,007. But the latest figures show there are in fact 8,223 people in Scotland's prisons, so more than 200 over the target. Well, our political correspondent Phil Sim is following this story for us. Phil, what's prompted this latest round of releases then?
Well, as you see from the figures there, the prison system continues to run well above capacity. There was modelling last year that showed it could go even higher. It could go up to 9,000 in the coming years. So the government felt it had to act. And they did a round of early release last summer to take the pressure off. Incidentally, the same thing happened in England and Wales last autumn. This is not an issue which is unique to Scotland, but what we're seeing now is the result of emergency legislation that MSPs passed last year. That changes things so that people serving a sentence of under 4 years will be released after 40% of their sentence rather than 50% as at present, although people convicted of domestic abuse and sexual offences would not be included in that.
Yeah, and do you think this is going to have the desired effect? Is it going to make a difference?
Well, the last round of early release, the impact was basically wiped out within a matter of weeks because there were so many people coming back into the system even as people were leaving early. But the idea is this should be a more lasting change because, beyond the prisoners who are immediately eligible for a release, which is up to about 390 as you said, this will apply to those who are coming into prison in future. Those people will be serving shorter spells, so the idea is it should bring down the overall prison population by about 5%. The government accepts that letting folk out is not a complete solution. It's part of a wider strategy. Yesterday we were hearing about better support for people when they come out of prison, a bid to reduce reoffending. We know the government also has a presumption against short sentences of under a year to try to prevent people from going into prison in the first place. Really, it's going to need a combination of all of these kind of measures if they're going to turn these figures around to a more sustainable level.
OK, Phil at Holyrood, thank you. 20 years ago, 5 family members were lost in a terrible storm which battered Uist and the west of Scotland. Their car was swept away as they attempted to cross a causeway between 2 islands. Now, there's a warning similar links are in a poor state, with the potential for the issue to reach crisis point amid a changing climate. Shona MacDonald reports.
During the storm on the 11th of January 2005, Archie Macpherson, his wife Merdina, their children, 7-year-old Andrew and Hannah, who was 5, along with Callum Campbell, Merdina's father, left their home in Killawley on the northwest coast of South Uist for safety at a relative's home just over a mile away. They never arrived. The 2 cars they were travelling in were caught up in the storm surge which breached the coastline. Merdina's brother, Neil Campbell, was unaware that Archie's body had been found when he went to report them missing.
The lady on the phone said, "Oh my God," because they knew that 1 person had been found already. They didn't know that there was 5 involved. So I then knew there was something wrong.
There were mixed emotions when all were found.
There was never anything good. They were searching for my family, and the only good thing you could think was that they found somebody, but they were never going to find them alive. So it was a horrible, horrible time, unimaginable.
The young family had recently set up home in Uist. The children attended Eacher Primary School, and Merdina worked in the office, where Mary McInnes was the head teacher.
A lovely family, getting on with their lives, having come back from Glasgow, settling in Uist, going to do 1,000,001 things to improve their own lives, and by being there they were improving the lives of their own families and of the community around them.
Further north on the island of Balashare, there is great concern there could be a tragedy on the deteriorating causeway which links it to North Uist. Closures due to storms were more frequent last year and started as early as August.
The way the causeway is just now, we think it's high possibility another tragedy could happen if somebody did try to cross it in bad weather. So yeah, it's quite a concern for a lot of people.
For the Macpherson and Campbell families, precious memories are what they have to reflect on from day to day.
We were good friends from a family of 8. We went through our lives being quite close together, although she had the same type of relationship with every one of her brothers and sisters. We all adored her.
Shona MacDonald reporting there, and that edition of Yorpa After the Storm will be shown on BBC Alpa at 9 p.m. tonight, and it is also available on iPlayer now. To some of the day's other stories now. And investigations are ongoing following the death of a woman in Glasgow. Police were called to Eccles Street in Springburn at 8:25 this morning. A large cordon was put in place near a block of high-rise flats with police and ambulance vehicles at the scene. The death was described as sudden and inquiries are ongoing. The family of 6-year-old Hope Gordon, who was murdered in West Calder last week, has asked anyone who wishes to pay their respects to line the streets of Livingston on February the 10th, when her body will be taken to Adambrae Cemetery. Hope and her 36-year-old father, Mark Gordon, were discovered after officers forced entry to a home following concerns she'd not been at school. A serious crash closed the Clydeside Expressway in Glasgow this afternoon after a pedestrian was hit by a vehicle. Police said the incident happened at about 1:35 p.m. near the Kingston Bridge. The busy Joe carriageway, which runs from the city centre to the west of Glasgow, was closed in both directions. Several emergency vehicles were at the scene and drivers were urged to seek alternative routes. Now, the UK Chancellor has unveiled her plan to get the country's sluggish economy moving again, with her backing a third runway at London's Heathrow Airport grabbing the most headlines. The Scottish Government says it is in favour of a third runway, but has urged against focusing too much investment in the southeast of England. Well, our Westminster correspondent David Porter is with us now. David, just talk us through the political reaction to this announcement.
Well, the speech had been fairly well trailed, so I think most politicians had a fairly good idea what was in it before the Chancellor stood up. When she did deliver her speech and sat down, the political reaction came thick and fast. The Chancellor argues that her number one priority is economic growth. She says that is necessary, and it's necessary to get the economy firing on all cylinders so people can have the public services they want and they need, quite frankly. As you say, the big announcement from this of infrastructure and investment was the expansion and the building of a third runway at Heathrow Airport. That will be controversial, both for and against. The Scottish Government have given a qualified welcome to those plans for Heathrow. It is also official SNP policy. The Chancellor, in making her speech, said that expanding Heathrow Airport would be of a direct benefit to Scotland.
60% of that boost would go to areas outside of London and the southeast, increasing trade opportunities for products like Scotch whisky and Scottish salmon, already two of the biggest British exports out of Heathrow. And a third runway could create over 100,000 jobs.
Irrespective of whether the third runway is granted, that is our focus. We have worked, for example, with Edinburgh Airport to expand their international connections. So I'm very proud of standing on a position that believes Scotland is an internationalist, open nation.
And David, what about wider business reaction then? Have we heard much there?
Generally, business has given this a pretty warm welcome. They like talk of investment, they like talk of infrastructure. They want to know, though, who is going to pay for it. So generally, yes, they have welcomed it. And it is worth remembering, though, of course, that Rachel Reeves has some bridge building to do with the business community, because she put national insurance contributions from employers up in her budget not so long ago, and employers did not like that at all. That said, not everyone in the business community has supported these plans for Heathrow. Michael O'Leary, the boss of Ryanair, says she would have been better cutting air passenger duty if she wanted to boost the economy. And these plans for Heathrow, nothing is going to happen soon. It could take 10 to 15 years to get all this sorted before that third runway is built. What we have had today is the rhetoric. Now ministers have to ensure that they back that up with reality.
OK, David at Westminster, thank you. OK, time now for the sport, and there is a big night of Champions League football ahead. Lewis is in Birmingham for us tonight. Not long to go now, Lewis.
Yeah, it certainly isn't long to go now indeed, Laura. Hello from what is an iconic venue, Villa Park. The Celtic players, the Celtic fans have all arrived here in Birmingham for what is the final night of the league phase of this season's Champions League. It's the first time we've seen this revamped competition, so a really lively night ahead. 36 teams all playing at the same time across 18 games, kicking off at 8 o'clock. The Celtic players were just out on the pitch behind me, taking in the atmosphere. There is already a pocket of fans flooding into the stadium, and still over an hour until kick-off. So yes, a huge game, two massive games and teams in the British game going head-to-head here in Birmingham very shortly. There's been plenty to sing and shout about for Celtic fans this season. And if results go their way tonight, they'll have even more cause for celebration.
Turn up, get a good shot. Well, that's why we're here, that's why we're on the next round. We gain a good shots.
If we even get a goal, we'll be cheering.
My friend who's an Aston Villa fan, but also a Celtic fan. I've covered both though, look. I've covered both.
It's good to see some of the names we're looking to bring in. Hopefully someday we can bring back Johnny Hayes, but we'll wait till then. The feel-good spirit is high in the camp too. Through to the next stage of the Champions League already, flying high at the top of the Premiership, and signings that have excited fans. But the hard work never stops for manager Brendan Rodgers.
You want to come and play in these great arenas against fantastic teams, and for us, the players will get the opportunity to do that. And between now and the end of the market, we hope that we can reinforce the squad and keep the squad improving.
There's been a few Battle of Britain clashes in Europe this season, but tonight will be a slice of history with the two teams playing each other for the first time ever. And the English side aren't underestimating Celtic.
Good players, good coach. The club is as well prestigious club, and the players feel there they are a team to play in Europe, Champions League or another ways, and we are going to feel it, I think, very quick tomorrow when we are starting the match.
As it stands, this is the crop of teams occupying the playoff positions. The higher up the table Celtic finish, the more favourable the draw becomes for the next round. A win tonight could even see them move into the top 8 and progress straight through to the last 16. But with Villa in 9th looking to do the same, there's plenty to play for both sides, as one former midfielder who played for both clubs with distinction knows only too well.
It's going to be a good game to watch, because there will be a two-manager, tactically very well prepared, two good teams, pretty much with similar styles. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I've got two boys. One is a Celtic, one is a Villa fan. So you can imagine what's happening in my house.
No matter what happens, Celtic fans know they've got more Champions League football to come. Now all that's left is to find out where they'll finish in the table ahead of Friday's all-important draw for the next stage. To get a sense of the occasion and a bit more insight into how this intriguing clash could pan out, earlier on I spoke to BBC Sports Scotland pundit James McFadden.
Celtic are through, we know that, but I think they come here and try and continue the momentum that they've built up since the Dortmund defeat, and I think that's important. They come here and put on a good display, so they'll be confident, and as you say, they don't need to worry that if they lose they go out, but there's a big reward if they get through, more money, if they win the game they get more money, they go higher up the table, potentially a home tie, second leg, so look, there's a lot to play for tonight.
As someone that's played in the top tier of English football, what do you think the Villa fans and perhaps the media down here will be thinking about Celtic's chances tonight?
To be honest, having lived here and played here, they'll think Villa will be heavy favourites, and understandably, look, they've got some very good players, but Celtic have got a chance to come and show everyone just how good they are. They have played really well, particularly in the European games, missing some key players. That's going to be the big test, to see how they cope without Kyogo, without Maeda, Carter Vickers as well, so it'll be interesting, but I think Celtic will give a good account of themselves.
Just how big a loss are those players that you've touched on there, particularly Carter Vickers in defence?
Yeah, huge. I mean, Carter Vickers is the best defender. So it's big, especially in a game like this. You look at Villa and the options that they have. You want your best defenders in the team. So I mean, it is a blow, but you look at Trusty and Scales and the way they performed in Atalanta. Brilliant, defensively excellent, and it might well be that has to be the case again tonight.
And there's obviously a certain name in the Villa team that a lot of Scotland fans will be keeping a keen eye on, and John McGinn. What do you think he'll be feeling about tonight going up against a team like Celtic? How motivated and up for it do you think he's going to be?
Oh, yeah, I think he'll be absolutely buzzing. Whether he starts or not, if he doesn't start, then he won't be too happy, because it'll be a game he'll be desperate to play in. But no, look, John will want to go and play against Celtic and show everyone we already know just how good he is. But first of all, he obviously want to go on the pitch and he want to win for Villa. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he does.
Well, I can confirm that John McGinn is on the bench for Aston Villa. I'll bring you all the team news very shortly. But I mentioned how action-packed it is in the Champions League tonight. It's the same again tomorrow in the Europa League, and Rangers are in action. They close their campaign in the group phase stage against Belgian club Union Saint-Gilloise. The Ibrox side are already guaranteed a playoff spot to reach that last 16, and their goalkeeper Jack Butland is determined to move on from a costly blunder in Rangers' 2-1 defeat at Manchester United last week.
The reality is there's not a goalkeeper, there's not a player alive, a person alive that's never made a mistake before. They happen. What you do have to think about is how they happen, why they happen, and if there's any reasons for that. And if those things happen while you're trying to do the right things, while you're trying to be positive, and while you feel like you've made the right decision, then you just have to take it on the chin and just move on.
To rugby now, and the new chief executive of Scottish Rugby says that no decisions have been made yet in regards to the Six Nations on terrestrial TV. Some reports suggest the tournament could go to a subscription-based broadcaster when the current deal with the BBC and ITV ends after this year's championship. But the new man in charge at Murrayfield says everything remains on the table.
I'll get involved with the Six Nations, British and Irish Lions, World Rugby and everyone else in the next few weeks to learn where they are and the options that are available. But my understanding at the moment is that free-to-air is still very much an option, and I don't believe that any commitments have been made to an alternative, and that I look forward to kind of engaging with that whole debate.
Well, I did talk about the team news there, and for Celtic, I can confirm that there is a start for Yang in attack. We knew that Brendan Rodgers would be without Cameron Carter-Vickers in defence and Daisen Maeda, but Yang comes into that attack, and as I mentioned, John McGinn is among the substitutes for Aston Villa. You can follow all the action on the BBC Sports Scotland website. You can also get live radio commentary there too, and remember, there are highlights too right here on BBC One at 20 to 11 on Match of the Day. But from here at Villa Park, as the atmosphere builds, that's all from us here in the Sport Team.
Yeah, sounds like things are getting lively there. Thank you, Lewis. Well, Debate Night is back, hosted by Stephen Jardine tonight, coming from Glasgow at the new time of 9 p.m. on the BBC Scotland channel.
New year means a new series of Debate Night. Tonight we're in Govan on the banks of the River Clyde, and our audience here will put their questions tonight to Angus Robertson from the SNP, Kirsty McNeill from Scottish Labour, Douglas Lumsden from the Scottish Conservatives, comedian Karen Dunbar and columnist John McClellan. That's Debate Night with me. New time, 9 o'clock on the BBC Scotland channel.
And now Callum is here with the weather. You always bring us such lovely photographs.
Beautiful day, was it? Out of the breeze, a wee taste of the spring in the air, but it's a wee while off yet, Laura. Yes, it was a broad day, wasn't it? Just we had gorgeous sunshine. Once you cleared some early showers on the east coast, there was the odd shower for the west coast and in the northwest, but the showery rain was most prevalent for Shetland. Cloudy skies here. Later tonight, a small-scale potent low-pressure system will track in across Shetland, bringing a core of northwesterly gales here, driving rain too. Elsewhere, the northwesterly winds bringing some wintry showers to the north, but elsewhere it'll be clear, it'll be frosty, and a ridge of high pressure tomorrow affording another broad day. So out there tonight, well, we'll see the breeze continue, but tending to ease and become light inland, and we'll see an ice warning from 10 p.m. for parts of the north and northwest. The showers feed on to sub-zero ground, the risk of ice. Also falling as snow above 200 metres, perhaps a wee bit lower than that for some inland parts. Central, southern Eastern Scotland it's dry, clear and it's frosty, but not frosty for some windward coast and the Isles. Tomorrow then brings a frosty start, but a beautiful start. Blue sky, sunshine from dawn till dusk, actually, tomorrow itself. And into the afternoon, temperatures up to 5, 6, 7 degrees Celsius. With not much wind around, you'll feel the relative warmth of the winter sun. That's known as apricity, the meteorological term of tonight. But not so if you're in that wind, which will be quite gusty around Caithness, the band from Buchan Coast, and the gales and driving rain in Shetland gradually easing down through the day. Tomorrow night, a frost, but the temperatures will gradually lift through the night as a front edges in with some rain, sleet and upland snow, petering out as it does so, leaving a legacy of some misty low cloud West Highlands, southern uplands into Friday, perhaps a little bit of drizzle, best of the early sunshine in the north east. But through the day, brightening skies for many of us will lift the temperatures up to 5 to 8 degrees Celsius. Again, not much wind about. Later, freshening from a southerly direction for the Hebrides. Ahead of this cold front, which will threaten some heavier rain to the Hebrides on Saturday. Dry and bright, though, for much of the mainland. That front edging in on Sunday may bring us cloudier skies and some patchy rain and drizzle, but not much to write home about. That's you up to date on the weather front.
Thank you, Callum. And that's it for now. Switch over to the BBC Scotland channel for the news at 7. In the meantime, enjoy your evening. Good night.